In my last couple of videos, I explained how bylaws can affect how you are allowed to fly your drone in England and Wales and in Scotland. In this video, I'm going to have a look at the bylaws and how they may affect how you can fly your drone in Northern Ireland. In Scotland, we saw how access rights can complicate things a little bit, but in Northern Ireland, it isn't just the law, it's the confusion around it. So what's the same in Northern Ireland as it is across the whole of the UK? Let's start with what doesn't change. The CAA rules apply in Northern Ireland as they do across the entire United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Height limits, distances from people, flight restrictions, that's all exactly the same in Northern Ireland as it is in Scotland and in England and Wales. And bylaws, it's the same legal foundation. They're created under statutory powers and they regulate how the land is used. And if you breach a valid bylaw, that can be a criminal offence. So legally, nothing special here. Where Northern Ireland gets different is a problem of inconsistency, and that's where things start to break down. In Northern Ireland, there's no consistent approach between councils. Some councils have bylaws that can affect drones, and others don't. And in many cases, it's not clear what even applies. So, unlike England and Wales, you can't assume there's a clear, documented rulebook. And this is where most people can get caught out. You might be told, you can't fly here, you need permission. But that doesn't automatically mean that there's a bylaw. It could just be policy. And there's a big difference between a policy and a bylaw. A bylaw can create a criminal offence if you breach it. A policy can't. So the question isn't just what are you being told, is it lawful? It's what law is actually backing up what I'm being told. And in practice, this leads to confusion. Different departments within councils in Northern Ireland give different answers. Staff often don't even know the legal position. And so drone pilots end up being something from an official person that sounds official but might not be legally accurate. So you can be challenged without anyone actually pointing to a bylaw. Let's talk a bit about managed land, because there are some places where restrictions do exist. For example, harbours, estates or managed sites. These organisations can control what happens on their land, including takeoffs and landings. But that still doesn't give them the right to control the airspace. And once again, that distinction matters. So, what does all this confusion mean for you as a drone pilot? In Northern Ireland, you can't rely on assumptions. You can't rely on signage. You can't rely on what someone tells you that day. The only way to be certain is to check for an actual valid bylaw. Once again, you're going to have to pore through the local authority council website and identify who manages the land where you are intending to fly, and ask yourself, is this a legal restriction or just something that sounds like one? So what about the restrictions across the four nations? Well, in England and Wales, restrictions are usually structured and documented. In Scotland, access rights change the starting point, but in Northern Ireland, it's the overall inconsistency that catches people out. And this is exactly how drone pilots can end up getting themselves in trouble. Not because they're flying illegally, but because they've been given the wrong information. The law isn't always the problem. It's how badly it's misunderstood and communicated or miscommunicated. Now, I know that this doesn't really clear anything up and it maybe hasn't been very helpful. What I think it illustrates is just how complicated it is if you want to fly a drone anywhere in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland legally, safely, responsibly, with all the privacy concerns and sticking to the CAA regulations. If you want to do all of that, and the bylaws, don't forget about the bylaws, it becomes a massive issue. Having to check flight restriction zones, NOTAMs for temporary flight restriction zones, prohibited places which are sprouting up all over the place. Privacy, is it now that if someone is at work, even in a yard, is that a place where they can reasonably expect privacy at the workplace? It's quite possible. And for drone flyers, all of this work involved in trying to work out whether you can fly lawfully, responsibly, with due care and attention to other people and places, the whole hobby of drone flying becomes something that is starting to be too much trouble for a lot of people. And without wanting to add fuel to the fire, with the situation of the world at the moment, there are more military flights happening, especially around the coast of Scotland where I am, that make flying a drone a bit more hazardous.